gas is so expensive now? This is the Nissan Petrol V8. I mean, Nissan Patrol V8 in petrol. For 70 years, the Patrol has been Nissan's symbol of all-terrain, off-road, go-anywhere capability. It's right up there with models like Land Cruiser and Range Rover. But if you notice, like those other models, the Patrol has been leveling up when it comes to size and, of course, luxury. Now, what we have here is the latest version of the Y62. It's a facelift of the generation we've had since 2010. Now, funnily enough, this facelift was supposed to have been launched in May or April 2020, but they had to push that back because of the pandemic and chip supplies and everything else in between. They launched it in December 2021. Those who are already familiar with the Patrol Y62 will notice that the body really has not changed. The actual structure behind the chassis, it'll probably all be the same. I'm sure they made some improvements, but it's more about improving reliability and refinement. But what the big change is here is with the front look. I mean, look at the new front, it's completely different. Headlights, grille, bumper, it's all different. I mean, chrome, it's not for everyone, but with the Patrol, it looks right at home. They even have this two-tone finish with polish and satin on the V-Motion grille. Lower bumper looks good. The new 20-inch wheels look really good. And if you look closely, this is the first time, I think, that we're seeing the new Nissan logo on an official model in the Philippine market. Now, from that vantage point, you can see the changes to the Nissan Patrol. Actually, there really aren't that many. Taillights are new, trim is new, but overall, it still looks like a big, luxurious tank. There are many ways to open the tailgate. One is via the key, one is a button there, and one is a button by the driver's knee. When you do open it, the load space, if you notice, is actually quite high. It's about 37 inches from the ground. The width of this is 48 inches. There's a little bit more to give, but that's the narrowest measurement we got, and that's the one we're gonna count. Keep that in mind. The length from here up to the back seat, the third row, is about 19 inches. It's not much, but when you start folding down the seats, that's when you get quite a bit more room. See here. Right. Now, with the third row folded, this now goes up to 48 inches. If you know your measurements and your boards of plywood, that means you can go to your Home Depot and grab a sheet of plywood, split it in half, and you can fit all that in here. But wait, you can still expand it even further. Now, with that the way it is, you can actually put cargo all the way up to the first row, to the back of the front seats. But if you notice, on the second row, there is actually a liner that kind of, if you go beyond it, you can end up scuffing the very nice leather in this Patrol. We'll show you that once we go inside. Oh, and the maximum length up to that liner is about 64 inches. One more thing though, you notice that there's still a pintle hook here. That's really for towing, which is very popular in places like Australia. In the Philippines, the Patrol is popular for different things. When you open the massive hood of the Nissan Patrol, thankfully, it has these dampers. What you see is a massive 5.6-liter V8 gasoline engine, no turbos, nothing like that. Now, in terms of power, it makes 405 horsepower PS and 560 Newton meters of torque. It's permanent all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, which is, proper for a Patrol. But what's important here is when you look around the vehicle, like the engine bay, everything's just mounted high up and it's big. I mean, fuse box, the relay box, the air box, battery, ACU, everything's mounted high up. It's big. You also see the hydraulic power steering tank. This is a hydraulic power steering unit. It's not an EPS unit like in some other crossovers and SUVs. But the height of everything, yes, that's really what's important, because when it comes to water weighting, that's key for a lot of 4x4s. But surprisingly, Nissan is only claiming, I think, around 700 for the Patrol millimeters, while a lot of PPVs are already doing 800. But let me tell you now that the 700 is just a safe suggestion. I've driven the Patrol in waters much deeper than that, closer to around 900, maybe here, and no problem. Now let's get to the mechanical bits. This is still a frame-based SUV like any Patrol before it. But what really changed when they introduced the Y62 this generation was the switch over to fully independent suspension. You know what? Let's get a little help from my friend Arnold to show you the difference. Okay, I know, it's an LC80 body, but really the principles are what's more important here. I did want a Patrol Super Safari body or even a Navara body, but having one 3D printed is kind of too expensive. But no matter. What's important here is the suspension of this. If you notice, this has solid axles in the front and solid axles in the back. Now, what that gives you when you're going off-road is something called the articulation, the flex of the whole thing. It gives you traction in all kinds of conditions because when one wheel gets lifted, the other one tries to find something to grab onto on the ground. That is a big advantage. With independent suspension, that's kind of the trade-off for the front and the rear. This one, double wishbones, front and rear. But really, when it comes to off-roading, this is seen by purists as far superior. However, for on-road comfort, the fact that when you hit a bump in one, it affects the other, the whole body shakes. You know what? Does that make really a difference on-road and off-road? Let's go and drive this Patrol to find out. Oh, thanks, Arnold. If there's one thing I keep forgetting to mention about the Patrol in the Philippine market, it's that it's just not just called Patrol, it's called Patrol Royale. And you can kind of see why with the interior. They made changes to the colorway of the interior of the vehicle. Like if you jumped into one of the older ones, you'd see a lot of kind of wood paneling, faux wood paneling on the dashboard. It's still here, but it's no longer that shade of brown that you would normally find in your lolo's Mercedes or your dad's Camry. If you miss the brown, well, don't worry, there's brown everywhere. If you look at the Patrol clientele in the Philippine market, I'm willing to bet that more than 90% are actually sitting in the back, not sitting up here in front. They're mostly chauffeur driven, not really owner driven. So that's why Nissan pays quite a bit of attention to the comfort of the back seat. So when you sit there, it really does feel like a sofa. You even have your own armrest with 2 cup holders. Although the armrest, the angle for me is a bit low. Maybe for you it's comfortable, I don't know. But either way, the seat, the middle row is actually a really nice place to be. It really does feel like a couch, and it's the cushioning does feel like a couch as well. The third row of the Patrol is actually my chief criticism of this vehicle. Because considering the size of the vehicle, I would have thought it would have been bigger, or at least more spacious than that. Because when you sit back there, your knees are, well, my knees are actually already touching the back, the middle row, the back of the middle row. And like I mentioned earlier, there's no way to slide it to adjust or to give you a bit more legroom in the third row. So that's kind of a bummer. So it's really best left for kids or very short-legged individuals. I mean, I'm already short-legged and I find it really tight for my knees. But nevertheless, many Patrols, they're not really going to deploy the third row because the customer base of this, again, would sit in the middle row. And for the third row, well, they would usually do something else. To better explain what usually becomes of third rows for Patrols in the Philippines, we first have to look at how Patrols are used in different regions around the world. I mean, if you go to the Middle East, where the Patrol is one of the best-selling vehicles around, so much so that they even sell the older generations. They build the older generation Patrols and even the older generation Land Cruisers for that market because of the off-road capabilities. That's what they use it for, off-road. You know, sand dune bashing, that kind of thing. Wadi bashing, all that, that's fun. But over in Australia, for example, the Patrol, it's used more as a family vehicle, which is why it's very important for them to have a good third row because you want the whole family. Isofix, I think this one has Isofix as well, but they also do a lot of towing, which is why the pintle hook on the bumper is very, very useful. But in the Philippines, we're a bit different because our use of the Patrol, like, you know, Patrol Royale, is for executive transport. No, it's really for bosses and jefes and congressmen and mayors and governors. So if anything, it actually feels weird that I don't have any police escort with me. The more important thing is going to be vehicle armoring. I mean, that's one of the most popular options to do for the patrol. One of the customizations that's very, very popular here, even with the Land Cruiser, Range Rover, all those other vehicles. So they put in armor in the doors, they change the tires, they change the glass to ballistic glass, which, by the way, the glass of this is really good. It's the 2-panel kind. So when you close it, it's really quiet. So imagine how much quieter if it's going to be if it has ballistic glass. And usually ballistic glass you can't open anymore, depending on the glass. But yeah, underbody protection, run flat tires with, yeah, all that kind of stuff. And the third row, they usually put a ballistic door there. So that's the reality of how patrols are used in the Philippines. Now, if you're watching this and you're one of the special few who plans to drive their own patrol every day, let me tell you now that you are going to enjoy the experience. I mean, when you step on the throttle like now, it does give a very throaty growl, that V8. I wish I had more room to play and not traffic, but it is what it is. But what I do need to get out of the way now is fuel economy. I mean, the best I was getting in the city, the best you can really expect, usually around 4.5 to 4.8 kilometers per liter. That's on the good side already. On our kind of traffic, it's probably going to be around 3.8, 3.5. So bear that in mind with the patrol. On the highway, it does improve, but even then, it's kind of difficult to get past 10 kilometers per liter. But Nissan did spice up some of the details and make them a lot better. I mean, the steering wheel, it has the new Nissan logo. Again, like I mentioned, it's the first one that I know of in the Philippines that has the new logo. The other one is the installation of more Nissan Intelligent Mobility technology. So chief of those is the around view monitor with moving object detection. So if you heard all those beeps before and the camera going on, that is the patrol sensing a motorcycle is getting close to you. I mean, that's kind of expected for this kind of vehicle because it is quite wide. So if you're in traffic, it's really like driving around a big yacht. The center area is actually where a lot of the changes are, because you have this new screen here. It looks a lot more spiffy than before, because even I think the 2019 or 2018 model I drove before, that one felt like it came out of 2005 or something, even though the Patrol was launched in 2010. This one is more like it. The resolution is nice. I like the way they did the black thing here. The buttons are a lot better. There's actually a wireless charger in the dashboard, along with a 12-volt outlet. Here, there's a USB-C port and a USB port for data for the Android Auto. The sound insulation around, it's really good. I mean, even in the Land Cruiser 200 that I drove before, it wasn't this quiet. I haven't driven the 300 yet. They don't have any units of that. This one is very comfortable, and the on-road manners are really actually superb. Because like right now we're going over the bumps. I mean, I've been going over quite a few of those where they scrape up the road, because it is election season. So they scrape up the asphalt and then it's a bit rough. There's no droning from the tires. It doesn't feel like you're on a bad road. And that is something the Patrol is excellent at. While I don't have the opportunity right now or the fuel budget to go out and off-road with the Patrol, it is a vehicle that is already proven. I mean, we've driven it everywhere, literally. Like, well, not snow yet. I haven't driven the Patrol on snow yet. And given that the mechanicals haven't changed, we're not expecting any less from this. If anything, we're probably expecting a bit more, because they did make some tweaks supposedly with the 4x4 system. I can't really be sure of that, but in terms of the capability, it's already proven. Now, there are still going to be detractors who still want the live axle, and that's fine, because you still can get older Patrols somewhere, or even import some of the older generation new Patrols from abroad. But the ride of the new ones are like the double wishbones. It really is a lot better compared to what it was before. This is really kind of the future. Those kind of older suspensions have been phased out. If you still want that kind of suspension, well, Jeep still has those for the Wranglers and even the Jimny. Is the Nissan Patrol impressive? Oh yeah. Is it proven on all kinds of terrain? Oh hell yes. Now some of you may be wondering, hey, why get a Nissan Patrol when there's a Land Cruiser already out and that one is a diesel? Well, honestly, if you're in the market for one of these, you're gonna be immune to fuel increases. I know I'm not immune to fuel increases, which is why last night before today's fuel price hike, I was lined up at a gas station with the Patrol. Now, the other thing here is the price. You see, this Patrol retails for just over 4.5 million. Now, if you know your Land Cruiser 300 prices, those are retailing, starting actually, at 5.2. That's a staggering 700,000 almost more than this one. If you go for the top of the line Land Cruiser, it's more than $1 million than this one. So that is going to be the key advantage with the Patrol, the pricing. And if you're in the market for one of these, you're also looking at vehicle armoring. And for that kind of price difference, you can already get your Patrol armored, maybe, depending on where you go for your quote, for the price of the top of the line Land Cruiser. Is that gonna be worth it to you? Well, you let me know what you think about this vehicle, Mayor, Congressman, Governor.